am Diane Barrett. I'm with Carolyn Weathers with the BE Collection, and I'm honored to have you here, part of our collection and our interview. It is June 22nd, 2022, and I'm in Los Angeles, and Carolyn is in Long Beach, California. So welcome.
Thank you.
I'm happy to have you as a member of the collection. I think you'll be number 89 of the videos that we've done, so that don't quote me, but it's close. Yeah. And Carolyn, I know you have a lot of background that's good to share, and you've experienced sharing some of this before, which is great.
Oh, yeah.
This is a legacy collection, and it's important to impart as much as we can while we're here. So we keep going. So first of all, where were you born?
I was born in a little town called Eastland, E-A-S-T-L-A-N-D, Eastland, Texas, in Payne Hospital.
Ah, wow.
I was born February 19th, 1940.
Okay.
Yeah. Same day and year as Smokey Robinson.
Huh, that's interesting.
He also February 19th, 1940. So, yeah.
Did you ever meet Smokey?
Never met Smokey.
No.
Smokey never met me.
That's another way to look at it. Do you have siblings?
I do. I had one. She died in 2005 when she was 68. Her name was Brenda Weathers. She was a big activist as well. When she died in 2005, she was the executive director of the Long Beach Women's Shelter. In 1975, she founded the Alcoholism Center for Women. She had been the executive director of the Santa Barbara Gay and Lesbian Center and of the Northern New Mexico Animal Protection Society.
Oh,
She did a lot of stuff.
sounds like it.
Yeah.
Was she older or younger?
Oh, she was older, about 3 years. It was perfect. So when she was a senior in high school, I was a freshman. It was perfect in age. And she was a lesbian. In 1957, she was expelled from Texas Woman's University for homosexuality, or I think moral turpitude.
Right.
And she was handcuffed. It was illegal then to be yourself.
That's right.
So she was handcuffed and taken to the Denton, Texas police station.
Wow.
Yeah, and
who reported her? How did that come to pass that she was?
It's kind of a Juliet and Juliet love story. She and her roommate fell madly in love. I don't know. I've forgotten the roommate's name, but I just always call her Anne. So Anne lived in Houston. Denton, Texas is in northern Texas near the Oklahoma border. And if Houston is down in the southern part of Texas near the coast, Gulf of Mexico. So one weekend, Anne had gone to visit her parents in Houston. And in the meantime, her mother and father had found some love notes that Brenda and Anne had sent each other, even though they were roommates. They switched little love notes. They were just horrified. And they put her under house arrest in her own home.
Her parents did.
Her parents did. And they wouldn't let her go back to school. They weren't going to let her do anything. So Brenda decided, she's up in Denton at the university, that she would go rescue Anne.
Of course.
Yeah. So
she do that, right? That's a lesbian track. Right?
Well, so she got in her car, drove down to Houston to Anne's house. And her parents would not admit her. They didn't want Brenda to come in, but somehow they finally did let her into the house. Anne's father beat my sister Brenda with a rubber hose. And I don't know how they did it, but they managed to escape. So Brenda did go down and rescue Anne. So they drove back up to Denton.
So what year was this again?
1957. Brenda was 20 and I was 17. So that's back when women had curfews at dorms. I remember it was okay with
me too, right?
All those women, you know, but so they had missed curfew. So that started a big to-doodly they had to go stay at some friends off campus.
Mhm.
In the meantime, that had set things in motion because they had missed the curfew. That's when the police came to their friend's house and arrested both of them and
Wow.
to the Denton police station. And Brenda was told that if she repudiated her homosexuality, she could return to college. But she wouldn't do it. Here she is, 20 years old, 1957, handcuffed in a police station, and she refused to repudiate it. Our parents taught us to stand on our principles.
Did they know that your sister and you were lesbian at that time?
Well, I wasn't at that time. I was 21. I was 17.
You hadn't come out, right? But did they know your sister was out?
Yeah, but she wasn't 21 yet. She turned 21 in a couple of months. To tell her parents. And my father was a Baptist minister. It was the minister's wife. But every time I tell people that, I must let people know that they were not the stereotype of the ultra far right that you see today. They were anything but that. They were really far ahead of their time. And they weren't happy that Brenda was lesbian. Right. But they accepted it. And they knew that their daughter would now be shunned by society. They did not want to shun anybody else's son or daughter. Thereafter, they accepted Brenda's friends and lovers into their home.
Wow, wonderful.
Yeah, so they were just great. And when my mother died in 1988, of course, she was still in Texas, Fort Worth, Texas.
So she didn't get back into school, your sister?
No, she moved to Dallas and got a job as a radiation technologist or something. And she lived in this place in Dallas. It's trendy now, for heaven's sake, but then it was not trendy.
Right. She
lived in this old rundown Victorian house with several other people and a gay man who liked to dress in women's clothes, a straight woman from, I think, some Eastern European country who was very eccentric. It was a wonderful bunch. They either call it how they were feeling, they would call it the Old Gray Palace or the Old Gray Barn. And now I was in college at Tech, and I was underage. It didn't matter back then. They took me to my first gay bar. It was a gay bar in Dallas. And it had potted plants and potted palm trees. And I thought this was so fancy.
Right.
I was used to what we call the shit kickers out in West Texas, at the VFW hall, where all us underage teenagers would go. That's the Texas style. There were no potted plants, of course, no potted palms. So I thought this was just living smart. This was called Le Boeuf sur le toit.
What does that mean?
Well, on the roof, I think. OUFSURLATOIT. And of course, that was extra fancy, Le Boeuf sur le toit. So, and then she would have parties at her house. And all these gay men and lesbians would show up. They'd bring their dogs. Beer would be iced down in the tub, big pot of spaghetti. So I was around a lot of gays and lesbians from a very early time. I was very lucky, and I had this courageous sister because I know there are so many LGBT who thought they were the only one. I knew it. I had a gay cousin named Ralph, who was a soldier in D-Day.
Wow.
Gravely injured in the hedgerows of France. And we were very close. And he was so proud of having been a D-Day soldier. He kept in a frame Eisenhower's letter that he sent out to all the troops in D-Day. You are embarking on a great crusade. That one.
That's great. Where is that letter?
I don't know.
Wouldn't that be great?
Probably with his sister. His sister was a straight ally. So he was to straight allies too.
Right.
but he had to live in fear that he would be found out as being gay. And he would have, his honorable discharge would have been sent to dishonorable.
Mhm.
But
Right.
also his medical care that he got from being wounded serving his country.
Mhm.
Had to be very careful.
Right.
I had another gay lesbian relative. Her name was Aunt Bell, Bell.
Oh, you sent me that photograph of her.
Yes, isn't that great?
Well, be sure to we'll try to remember to put that in there. Right. That's a great photo. Thank you.
The photo is she lived in the Panhandle of Texas. And her father, also a Baptist minister, paid her train trip to Chicago. She wanted to get out of Texas. So he paid for her to go on a train to Chicago. That's where she wanted to go. She became a teacher in Chicago. She had a career there for a long time. And when she got off the train, or shortly thereafter, she was walking around Chicago and she came across a hat shop and saw this beautiful Edwardian hat. And, you know, the women had these big hats, flowers, and ribbons. So she bought it, went to a photographer and had her photograph taken. And you've seen that.
Right.
Aunt Bell.
Now, what year was that?
I don't know. It was like something. 1904, something like. She was my.
I have photos of my grandmother's sisters in those big hats too.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, and they're from Chicago.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fashionable.
Oh, extremely fashionable.
Yeah, beautiful, actually.
So she, when she was there, she met the love of her life. I don't know how long that woman lived, but she died within a few years.
Wow.
So Aunt Bell moved in with her sister, Aunt Tude, Tude. That was for Gertrude. And great Aunt Tude was a straight ally. And I remember sometimes great Aunt Tude and great Aunt Bell would visit the family in Plainview, Texas, out in the Panhandle.
They were brave.
And my sister and I would have to go visit also. This was my father's family. They were very stern and austere. My father always preferred my mother's family. They were amiable and
more relaxed, right?
Relaxed and much more progressive, because Daddy's father was also a Baptist minister. So anyway, we would visit there. And I remember one time, Brenda and I were sitting in the living room with great aunts Tude and Bell. We were very young, early teens. And those two women would talk to us about how you can be anything you want to be. You can do anything you want to do.
Wow.
And the straight ally, Aunt Tude, was a nurse in France in World War I. So they did stuff. I'll never forget them talking to us like that.
Isn't that wonderful to have had that experience, right?
Yeah. Our father did that too. He would tell us, Brenda and me, you can more or less, you can do what you want to do, be what you want to be. Our parents encouraged us to be individuals with principles, you know.
Right. So good for them too.
Oh, very good for them. So I was very fortunate in my family. My mother's side of the family, again, much more relaxed, amiable, progressive, but most of them were just, you know, just they went along smoothly like that, except for my mother's first cousin, Frank Hardy. He was a safecracker with Bonnie and Clyde.
Really? Really? Wow, now that's something.
Not the one in the movie,
right.
But a different. He split with them after a while. He died in the Texas State Penitentiary in the, I guess. and how I regret not visiting him and talking with him to get more of his story.
And to find out how he did that safe cracking.
Yeah, he
Right.
learned it in Boys Reform School when he was a teenager. He and the mayor's son went out stealing things. I don't know, tires, barbed wire. I've heard various things.
Guy stuff.
Yeah, and they got caught. And the mayor's son got off. Party was sent to the Boys Reform School.
Oh.
That's where he learned safe cracking.
Nice. So maybe that was good.
Yeah. Able to support himself.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. So I forgot what I was going to say. But
So you have a really interesting family.
yes, I do.
Really, I mean,
yeah.
as I've listened to people, and just the acceptance of who you were as a person, first of all, as well as your sister, and then as a lesbian.
And the family, not just gays and lesbians, but straight allies.
Right, which is great.
There's a photograph I sent you, I think. It's in somebody's kitchen. They're cooking Thanksgiving dinner or something. And it's my gay cousin Ralph, lesbian great aunt Belle, and straight great aunt Tude, and her lesbian daughter. So here they are, this family group of 4 people, and only one of them is straight.
I know. You wonder how straight she was.
She was an ally, so very different from what a lot.
Right. I know.
So it certainly helped me a lot.
That's right. Just the anxiety of coming out was sort of eliminated.
And to think you're the only one, I knew I wasn't. I had been even before I came out. I was partying and with all these gays and lesbians.
With all those palms, like bars, right?
Le trois, yes.
Right. So how old were you when you really fully came out to yourself?
21.
21.
Mm-hmm.
What was your next step after that? What was that aha moment? You said, well, I guess I'm a lesbian too.
Well, the beginning of my junior year in college, I decided to drop out for a while.
Oh, did you?
I moved to San Antonio, where my sister was by now. And I got a crush on the bartender, who was a woman at the bar. And that's when I realized it was the women I fell in love with. But at least I realized that I could act on my emotions of, falling in love, and I could fall in love with another woman, and it was good. I went on from the bartender.
Well, of course, I remember those women bartenders. They had to be tough. It was sort of the persona of I didn't have a lot of contact with it, but that was my observation. And I stayed in San Antonio about 2.5 years, 3 years. Oh, yes.
In San Antonio, every year, just all of San Antonio, one of their celebrations is called Fiesta San Antonio. It's kind of like New Orleans Mardi Gras.
Oh, it's big.
Oh, yeah. And it has that atmosphere to it, kind of loose, everybody lets them party, kind of like carnival. So there's a place called La Villita. It's in downtown San Antonio. It's an historic Spanish, Mexican, German town. And a lot of the fiesta is there in that locale. And there's a place called the Arneson, Arneson, Arneson River Theater. And every year during Fiesta, they would put on what they called the Carnation, Cornyaation, which was a parody
Of coronation.
Carnation, the Queen of Fiesta. And they would do a parody of it. Hilarious. After a few decades, they finally had to stop. They skewered everybody, anybody, but including the politicians, left and right politicians. So finally they had to close it. But what we did in 1963, we had a drag show, Carnation, at one of the gay bars. And I was the MC. And I
Good for you.
still have that script that I read.
Uh-huh.
It's in this book. A woman wrote a book about the Carnation, and she put that script in there. So, and they had whoever put on our drag show, Carnation, invited some of the big honcho straight people who put on the Fiesta to our drag show. And they came.
They loved it.
They loved it. They just
Right.
had a wonderful time. And it started this kind of liaison between the gay and straight communities in San Antonio. San Antonio has always been known for its relaxed.
Has it?
Yeah. And they would be in La Villita, the gays and lesbians, we designated a specific curb that we called it the gay curb. We'd all meet there and we would be obviously gay, but it was okay because it's carnival, it's fiesta.
Anything goes.
Yeah, anything goes.
So where had you interrupted your college then to be part of this different part of your life, right?
Mm-hmm. And then I returned to college.
What was your goal in college? Did you have a major that you were developing?
I had a double major, history, which I loved, and library science.
Oh, there you go.
2 years after that, library science, you had to have a master's, but at that time you took the same course as a bachelor's. So I had the double major. So I became a librarian. Most of my career was with the Los Angeles Public Library System. I moved out to LA in 1968 to be part of the counterculture and the hippie thing. So I did that. Brenda had already moved out here in the early 60s. And she got her degree in anthropology. She finally got her degree at Cal State Long Beach.
Really good.
Yeah. So anyway, I was with the Los Angeles Public Library mostly. And in 1992, I was asked to put together a reading of gay and lesbian writers. Had trans been more open at that time, I would have included, it would have been a
part of it.
I forgot the GLT. Yes, would have been part of it.
Yeah.
So I made sure I had it as eclectic as possible. There were 8 of us. I made sure that half were gay men, half were lesbians. I had Jewish, Hispanic, Asian, white.
Gave everybody a chance to be out there. Right.
I could only have 8. And out of that 8, I tried to make it as eclectic as possible. And it was a wonderful, wonderful reading. We had it at the downtown Los Angeles Central Library. Yeah. So, so I was kind of known as an out lesbian and could be a liaison because here.
Who chose you, do you think? Or do you know?
I can't remember his name. He was he was a straight librarian. Who worked in a department at the Central Library. I don't remember his name, I swear.
It'll come to you in the middle of the night, 3 in the morning, right?
Yeah. I'm sure I have it written in my
someplace.
Yeah, I started my journal in 1954 when I was 14.
Mhm.
Someone had given my sister a diary,
Mhm.
one of those things that has a lock.
Right, little key.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She didn't want it. So she gave it to me with the stipulation that she could keep the key.
Oh, really?
So I would hide the diary and she would hide the key. He never found my diary.
Did you find the key?
I never found the key.
You
She
didn't?
found the diary, but so I always thought that was so funny. And I start my diary explaining that little
Mhm.
story. Um,
So do you still journal now?
I haven't for the last year,
Mhm.
and I have some lapses in it, which I so regret. But yeah, since 1954, I mostly
Amazing.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 file cabinets here in my office. I
So
think
you have to give those to the archives, right?
probably to the Mazer.
Uh-huh.
A lot of my collection is at the One Archives right now, but I think I will give the diaries and journals
Uh-huh.
to the Mazer, of course, after my untimely demise at the age of 102,
Right.
and my photograph albums. One has digitized my photograph albums because I have them going back way, way back
That's great.
chronologically.
Mhm.
Story of my life and everybody who's been in it and the events.
Wow.
So,
So
yeah.
where do you store that?
In my office.
Uh-huh.
My
Right.
office is the second bedroom in my condo, but I use it for
Like an
office
office.
and
Mhm.
storing things. It's my archival storage space.
Because I think that Greg had said that they have received a grant for more gay and lesbian information at Cal State.
At Dominguez Hills.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And he's putting it together and doing a wonderful job. He really wants to build this. And
Maybe it should go there.
maybe I'll have to decide.
I don't, have it. I just thought, well, good opportunity to have it.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I know. I have to decide because the photograph albums and the journals are not going anywhere until my death.
Right.
I'd have a breakdown if I would get rid of them.
Right. No, I understand that. Yeah.
I have
We
an
don't want
archive.
to let go of that. No, we don't want that to happen.
No, we don't.
Oh, right.
It took me 5 or 6 years of angst to decide to give a lot of my collection to one. One is wonderful. Mazer is wonderful. And what Greg is doing is wonderful. It was really hard. And I gave it to one because they were more centrally located.
Mhm.
So I thought that was good. So we'll see.
Right. Just so people can access it, I think.
Oh, yeah. Want it to be accessed.
Right. It's important.
It's a lot of history in there.
And times change.
Indeed, they do.
From Aunt Bell till now, imagine.
I never dreamed when I was keeping the bars open in San Antonio in my early 20s that anything like this would come about.
No, you just do your life. And,
your life.
yeah.
And in 1970, my sister and I were both members of the Los Angeles Gay Liberation Front.
Mhm.
That started that in motion. But even in 1969, this is when I lived in Hollywood now. It was very much a hippie scene.
Mhm.
And I remember walking barefoot up and down Hollywood Boulevard in my bell bottoms and my headband.
Mhm. You were really into it.
And smoking pot with strangers in alleys down the street, because that was illegal too.
Right.
Yeah. So we would do some gay and lesbian friends and I would do impromptu guerrilla theater, gay and feminist, usually in front of the Hollywood tour buses. So I was doing that in 69. And so in
How were you supporting yourself then?
I had a job with the library, with the inner city bookmobile. That was great.
I love the bookmobiles.
Oh, me too. So that was lots. And one of my other jobs was with the Los Angeles Public Library with the service to shut-ins. That wouldn't be necessary today, not with the digital world.
I don't know, though. You know, people cannot use it.
That's true.
I'm finding that, you know, because I'm talking to older people like us, and I'm on my own learning curve.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
What we would do, the van driver and I, he was gay too, by the way.
We're everywhere, right?
Would go visit various shut-in people who could not go to the library. And I would talk to them, and then I would go to this book depository and bring books to them. I got to learn by a sixth sense what they might like further. And that was a great service too. And one of the reasons I wanted to become a librarian was I knew I would have, this is back then, job security, benefits, and I would be able to live my own adventures, which I did. I would always go on adventures, and then I would come back to the library. They always took me back.
They knew you were a good worker.
Yeah, yeah. No, I was. And I respected all the patrons, and everybody got my respect. I wanted to tell you something else about LAPL. People think that librarians are just, so stodgy. The American Library Association was the first organization in this country to have a gay task force, which is what they called it, just a gay task force for its employees. And after I had retired, I retired in 1990.
Time flies.
Yeah, when I was 70. And so about 5 years later, the Los Angeles Public Library has a gay and lesbian, now it would be trans too, in the West Hollywood Pride Parade. So they asked me to be in it. And I had this long sash. I still have it. That says Grand Librarian.
Oh, that's great. Who made that?
One of the people at the library. And it's got all sparkly stuff. It's really wonderful. It's wonderfully technical. And as we came down the street,
Hollywood Boulevard. Were you on Hollywood?
Boulevard. The early parades were on. No.
Monica.
Yeah. No, they're on Hollywood Boulevard. It's on Santa Monica Boulevard now.
Right.
Edit out. And this wasn't just librarians. It was the whole staff. Library clerks, library assistants, the people who shelved the books, all of us, all together.
So you were in the parade with all these people?
Oh, yeah. The library. At Los Angeles Public Library, and our motto was, "What's your query?" QU.
Right, I got it.
And so we would march down the street and singing. What can you get at the library? Books. What do they cost? What can you get at the library? Videos. What do they cost? They're free. Along with gay and lesbian slogan. And the people watching the parade just loved it, to see a library contingent. Whoa. And then and then the Grand Librarian, for heaven's sake. So some shush the crowd. Shh. Oh God, they would fall over laughing when I
That's great. What color was that thing?
My sash?
Yeah.
Yellow.
Yeah, good.
I think the words Grand Librarian were in dark blue. I do have it here.
Take a picture of it.
Yeah, I will. I'll send it.
Fun, yeah.
So that's kind of a lot of background. Oh,
That's good.
I was the first out lesbian on a Los Angeles talk show,
Were you? What show was that?
the Regis Philbin show.
I remember him.
It's before he got famous nationwide. He was famous in Los Angeles. It was called a Tempo show, TEO. And it was October 1970. Morris Kite was the gay representative from the GLF, and I was the lesbian representative. Regis was so nice.
Was he? Yeah.
Yes, very nice. He knew I was very nervous. So I had stage fright. I wasn't nervous about coming out as a lesbian all over Los Angeles. I had terrible stage fright. I hadn't done interviews at that time, and it was live. Like from here to here, huge thing. No. So, but he was very, very nice. And so was the woman. I don't remember her name on the Tempo show, but they were both sweet with me.
So they interviewed you?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
They
What
interviewed.
questions did they ask? What kind of questions did they?
What were our goals? And I remember talking about how much we wanted to get rid of the stereotypes about us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like
Hating men, stuff like that.
huh?
Like hating men.
Oh,
Well, I mean, that's a stereotype that we all hate men.
oh, right.
Right.
I thought you said HEY, men.
No.
Oh, yeah, we hated men.
Right.
We had to have in our couples, one had to be the man, another had to be the wife, or that we hung around schoolyards with brownies in our pockets to seduce the little girls. And I talked mostly about that.
Right.
Morris talked about how the GLF had been talking with Huey Newton, and we were going to hook up with the Black Panthers. The Black Panthers were not happy about that. Some were happy.
Right.
Gays and lesbians. Some thought it was a good idea, some didn't. But that's how I ended up the next month as a lesbian delegate from the LA GLF to the Black Panthers Revolutionary Constitutional Convention in Washington, D.C., Thanksgiving weekend, 1970.
Wow.
I wasn't a good delegate. I'm not good at political nitty-gritty. I'm a storyteller and I do a lot of stuff. I'm not an organizer. I can't talk, again, the nitty-gritties of politics. But anyway.
Doesn't interest you.
No,
I'm
not good at it. It's good that it has to be.
Right.
It's like at the library.
So were you in a relationship all these years when you were coming out, so to speak, or?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
When I came out, I fell madly in love with this woman. And it was the first time I had been truly in love and in lust with this person who happened to be a woman. It was fabulous. And that's when I knew for sure, I am a lesbian. All right. So yes. And then during the movement times in 1970 to 75, I was with a woman called Katie Pender. She later changed her name to Kate O'Brien. We lived in Silver Lake before it got trendy. And then I went for a time. I didn't have a partner for a long time. My sister always had a partner. She always wanted to have a partner. Sometimes I like to just be by myself.
Yeah.
Kind of standoffish about getting committed and involved. I met the love of my life in 1984, and that was Jenny Wren. You've interviewed.
Right. Married
now to Sharon Raphael. And we were together about 12 years. We're the ones who had this book publishing company.
She said that, right?
Yeah. Clothespin Fever Press.
I like that name.
I do too. I wanted to call it something like Windsor Press,
A big class, right?
But Jenny had made, she entered an art contest, I guess, for handmade materials, art. She handmade this book like this. And on the outside, she used clothespins, wire, bolts. One has it now. And she spray painted it white, and it was shown at the Brand Library in Glendale at an exhibition. That's about the same time she thought about having this publishing company, and she had clothespins on her mind. Called it Clothespin Fever Press. It was her idea, and of the two of us, she's the one who knew halfway what we were doing. We were both naive. Had we known what it would entail, we wouldn't have done it. We wouldn't have had the guts. So it's good we didn't know.
Right. Sometimes it's better not to.
Indeed. You won't do something if you know. Oh my God.
Where's this going to go, right?
So one of our books won an American Library Association award.
Really?
Lesbian book. This was an anthology we did for the writers from the first 5 years of the Lesbian Writers series that Anne Bradley started, which was an iconic writers series in Los Angeles. It was at the old Different Light bookstore.
I remember that.
It was an iconic.
Wait a minute. Okay. We had a little traffic here. Okay.
Iconic bookstore. And it was the first 5 years of writers from the first 5 years. And like Anne Bradley, when she started the Lesbian Writers series, she didn't care what the author read. It didn't have to be political. It just didn't matter as long as the person was an out lesbian. And that's how we were with our press.
That's how we are here. Yeah.
It's wonderful. It's just wonderful.
Right. We want to keep it that way.
Yeah. We didn't care if a writer wrote about her dog's trip to the moon to visit the moon doggies, whatever, just so she was an out lesbian.
Right.
One of our books, though, it was all women. It was women writing about the loss of their mothers. And that won an award, too. It was just great. The Lesbian Writers series, Anne Bradley asked me to be the first writer to read there. Inaugurate the Lesbian Writers series. That was in February 1984. Jenny and I started the book publishing company in 1985. First, she published one of my books, Leaving.
What was it?
It was a memoir, very short memoir of my time in Texas and then coming to, as a preacher's daughter, kind of an Andy Hardy back, and then moving to Texas as it ended when I moved to California. And then she published a book called Self-Portraits, viewing myself as the adult child of an alcoholic. Her mother was an alcoholic. She rode a motorcycle, and she decided to do a Dyke's Bike repair handbook, which somebody has just reviewed on Amazon. Somebody who's not gay or lesbian who's saying this is really a good book on bike repair. And
remember the Dykes on Bikes leading the parades?
Yeah,
I love that. Yeah.
That Honey Carell did in the book. And so we decided we wanted to publish others, and we didn't want people to think we only published ourselves. So Jenny wrote this book, but she gave herself a pseudonym.
She was crafty.
Jill Taylor.
That's a good name.
And then we started publishing all these other people. Amazing. But we didn't have any money. We couldn't publish a lot, but they were great. And Jenny made sure the covers were great. One of our last books was Marie Cartier's first book of poems. And the cover on that is very plain. We couldn't afford anything else. when it went bankrupt, I guess, in 1993, there was a huge recession at that time. There have been bigger ones that have followed since,
Right.
but at that time,
More coming.
huge. more on the way.
Right.
But at that time, it was big.
Uh-huh.
And more people looking for work than there were jobs. Jenny's parents both died in the same year.
Oh, goodness.
And she had inherited this house with a pool, I mean, the whole thing, in La Mesa, California, which is in San Diego.
Uh-huh.
So we thought, maybe we should move there. We can find some kind of job. We won't have to pay rent. We can put more money into the press.
Right.
It turned out to be one of the worst decisions we had ever made in our lives.
That happens.
What happens?
Yeah.
And found no jobs. Eventually, Jenny had to mortgage the house.
Oh, goodness.
And at that time, Inland, INLAND, was a major distributor of small press books. They went bankrupt. When they went bankrupt, all these small presses, like Domino's, went bankrupt. And we were one of them. We got to have this publishing company and do all these readings during the last of the heyday of the small press bookstore and the independent.
So what was the name of the bookstore?
A Different Light.
A Different Light. Okay.
And there was Sisterhood Bookstore. There was all these wonderful bookstores. So we got to be part of that. And then we got
a lot of that because of Amazon being able to bargain books.
The digital world was starting in.
That's right.
Right. That and the recession, bankruptcies. Everybody was doing bankruptcy. It was
right. Awful.
Yeah. So Jenny did bankruptcy. I did bankruptcy. And Clothespin Fever Press did bankruptcy. Jenny, in the meantime, the only job she could get, she was a librarian with the Los Angeles County. She got a job back with the Los Angeles County. So she had to move back up. She moved to Long Beach and commute home to San Diego on the weekend. And here I don't like the suburbs. I like urban. So here I am stuck in this house in the suburbs by myself.
Right.
Tending the swimming pool and the trees, and she's just commuting home. I tried everywhere to find a job. I even humiliated myself applying for a job as a law librarian, for God's sake.
Wow.
Explained to the interviewer why I wanted to leave public library work into law library work. And then I applied for a job as a dishwasher, but they laughed me out because I was a woman.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I applied for a job stocking shelves in a grocery store. But again, so many people were looking for jobs.
Right.
I finally got a job at the Salvation Army, taking donations out of the boxes, and putting them on shelves and on hangers. And I had food stamps.
I remember those, right.
We had 3 dogs, so that fed the dogs. Then finally, I got a job with the San Diego Public Library, but only as a substitute librarian on the weekends. So
That's amazing, huh?
Yeah, we decided let's move back to LA.
Yeah.
Well, we belong there anyway. Let's just move back because Jenny had this job with the county. Carolyn, LAPL will take you back. Let's just go. But in the meantime, Jenny, during these 3 years we were in San Diego, had an apartment in Long Beach. And that's when she discovered how cool Long Beach was.
Really?
We packed everything up and we were on our way back to LA and we just stopped in Long Beach. And that's why I've been living in Long Beach since.
Ever since? That's how you got there.
I live in downtown Long Beach. It's wonderful. It's urban, but it's compact. One of the most walkable places in the nation. So I'm very happy here.
So you moved to Long Beach. You loved it.
Loved it. And that's when we broke up. Jenny Okay. All this adversity affected us in different ways.
Yeah.
It made me ready to go on another 12, 24 years with Jenny. Jenny needed to just break away from everything. I understand that people, that was her. But we have become deep friends. We're a family.
Right.
Sharon Raphael, an old activist, about 4 years ago. They live in Long Beach. It was a wonderful wedding in their front yard, and all their neighbors were watching. Hey, I was something. I don't know. I was the best something or other. And their dog Betty was the ring bearer.
How cute.
For the rings to be brought up. The rings were around Betty's neck, and I had on her collar, and I had her on her leash, and I brought Betty up to the place of the wedding. So it was nice. I'm so glad you interviewed Jenny and Sharon.
Right. I'm glad too. We're very thankful.
Oh, she's done some stuff. So did Sharon. So again, we're like family. It's a wonderful thing. It's not like we're friends. We're more than friends, but not partners, obviously.
Right.
It's family. So,
well, one of the things that we're doing, we started off focusing on careers because, I feel we need a career to support ourselves. But then now we've interviewed many women, many careers. So I'm asking people to think about how they want to expand it. And family came up because we define family differently. It's our biologic family, but then our lovers.
Our chosen family.
Right. And so lesbians have very expansive families by and large.
Indeed. Yeah.
So I like that.
Oh, I like it too.
Right.
I know I have some straight friends who don't get along with their families. They have chosen families. They call them too.
Right.
They're friends. There's something I wanted to tell you.
Okay. I'm listening.
Mother died in 1988.
Your mother?
My mother.
Okay.
Died of cancer. And of course, my sister by now lived in Seattle, her partner. And we went to Texas to, take care of her. But I will never forget in the visitation room, at least for Protestant families in Texas, it's a couple of days before the actual funeral. And in the funeral home, the casket is in this special room with lots of flowers, very low organ music playing, and people can come in to have visitation.
Right.
Of course, the casket is open. I like that myself. Some people don't. You don't want to look in, don't,
Right.
So I remember I was in there by myself at that time. And I looked around at all these flowers, and I noticed that about half of them were from my mother's senior citizen and church friends in Texas. The other half were from all her gay and lesbian friends out in California.
Really?
Yeah. Great. Yay.
We're great.
Wife.
That's great.
Yeah. So again, I always want people to know that they weren't at all like these horrible far right religion, the far right religious, far right non is bad enough, but far right religious, so hypocritical.
Scary.
Yeah. So.
Did your mother like flowers?
Yeah, she liked flowers.
People must have known that, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And in Protestant funerals, you send flowers anyway. Flowers are an expression. That's what you do. And again, in the I'm not sure about everybody else, but with Protestants, I don't know about, I think Catholics too, but flowers.
Flowers, that's right.
Yeah.
Life,
yeah. Life, and then.
How about your father? When did he die?
1961.
Uh,
He died of a heart attack. He was only 56 years old.
oh,
He we lived in a place called Cleburne, Texas. He was a chaplain in World War II, by the way.
mm-hmm.
He was stationed out at Fort Ord in California.
Right.
So, and mother followed him. So we were like army brats. And I remember, I have memories going back to when I was a baby. So,
Do you?
so
Those are
remember,
good.
I was 3 and 4 is easy. So I have a lot of memories of it. So I started out in Texas, moved to California as a tot, and then back to Texas. And then in 68, moved on my own back to California. So those are my 2 states.
Right.
And so, and we got to be tomboys too. In small towns of Texas, I know it, I don't think the cities, girls got to run wild. We got to be like the boys. The girls, it was normal. It was considered normal for all girls to be tomboys, go through the tomboy phase. And I remember there was one girl who wasn't. She was kind of prissy and delicate, but she was abnormal, you see.
Because she wasn't a tomboy.
Yeah.
She probably didn't know how to be one.
No, she didn't.
Right.
Wasn't one.
The skills were gone. We're not there.
Even if they turned into little ladies by high school, tomboy. When I went to high school at this little burg out in the Panhandle of 8,000 people, the girls were just as rowdy as the boys. We still call ourselves the rowdy gals. We're still the rowdy gals. So anyway, my father, the church secretary, accused my father of having an affair with another woman who happened to be their best friends. Ed and Marguerite Hamilton were my parents' best friends. We would go camping together, all kinds of things together. And I don't know, maybe they kissed or something. I don't know what they did. Maybe they didn't do anything. But the church secretary, so it causes huge scandal in the church.
Boy, it never stops, does it?
No, it just doesn't.
Just yet.
And
go on. Right.
Half the church wanted us to stay. Half the church wanted us to leave.
Mm-hmm.
So my father and mother decided to leave Cleburne.
I don't blame them.
And we moved to a place like 400 miles away, way out in the Texas Panhandle, brownfield of 8,000 people. It was very traumatic.
Right.
And my father was bipolar. There was no diagnosis at the time, no treatment at the time, but that just kind of triggered it. I had there were about 5 deaths within 2 years in the early 60s that triggered mine. And that, so he finally had to leave Brownfield because it had a heart attack. It was terrible. He used to sell cheap encyclopedias door to door to try to make a living. Anyway, when he was 56.
Huh.
That's the same year I came out, 1961. So
after he was dead?
Before he was dead.
I see. Mm-hmm.
Oh, and again, they would visit Brenda and me. All the gay and lesbian friends would be there, and they would come,
hang out,
coffee and cakes, and hang out with everybody.
That's great.
Oh,
it's really unusual.
No, really unusual.
Says a lot about their character.
Yes, it does.
Really?
They have good character.
So, how do you think that you and your sister it was like you were trained to be activists?
In a way, I guess.
Really, it's interesting, huh?
It's
had to start with your family.
Did. Yeah. They were very fair-minded. Mm-hmm. They raised us, and to have high principles and stick to those principles, which is what Brenda did when she was handed to the police station. And Mother said to Brenda and me, when she was declared terminal with her cancer, that she and Daddy were so proud of us And that they had rather us be gay and have high principles than be straight and not have high principles, high moral values. Yeah. So that's how they were.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
And my sister and I came to realize later in life how many people have god awful parents. It was terrible to learn other people's stories.
Right.
And we were very fortunate in having the two people we had to be our mother and father. So
a gift.
A gift.
And then it allows you to keep on giving. I mean, once the child receives, then
you keep yeah. You've received it and you give it.
Right. So you don't walk around with a bunch of fear hanging on to everything. That's great. It's a good story.
Yeah, it really is. It says a lot about them. And
so now are you you retired in 1970, right?
No, I retired
1990.
1990. Yeah,
1990, when you were 70.
When I was 70.
That's how I got that, right.
And I had bought back a lot of my time when
right.
When I'd leave and come back, leave and come back. I bought back that time.
That's good. Yeah,
I'm so glad. So I got to retire. And I was born to retire. I got to tell you, I love it. I just love it.
Well, so what do you do in your retirement that you love?
Well, I take a lot of walks.
You tell your story, which is inspiring.
I tell my story. I'm interviewed a lot and I get to tell my story. And I'm writing a memoir. I'm stuck right now, but sometimes you get stuck when you're writing. I've done a lot of writing. I've gotten a lot of it published. Again, the walks, I like to visit with friends. Walking, writing, visiting with friends.
Do you have a dream for your future?
A dream?
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to get my memoir published.
Mm-hmm. So where are you stuck? What phase?
I finished it.
Okay.
I'm stuck at, I think there's too much in there.
Oh.
What to select. I'm very good at short memoirs.
All right, good. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Put it all together very well into one. It's got wonderful pieces in it. Not sure the pieces fit together. So I'm stuck on that. I'm going to have to get somebody
to edit it. Yeah.
To edit it and read it.
It's hard because it's you. So if you take something out, you lost something of you, right? Maybe you should do that.
Yeah. And I give
let the reader edit it. See, this is my memoir. It's it, right.
Something out and it wouldn't hurt them so badly.
No, let them do it.
And I do what I can to help PETA, the Animal Protection Society and the Humane Society. It's very important to me to support humane treatment of animals, wild animals and pets both. So I want to get another dog. I love dogs. I think they're on this planet. And my dog Jack died a few years ago. I haven't gotten one since. I just, every time I see a dog walk down the street, it's like, oh, look, it's a dog. And I've never seen one before and I never will again.
So you're ready for a dog then?
Ready for a dog. So these are the things I do. Is that enough? Writing, doing interviews, helping out with animal protection societies, visiting with friends, walking, doing workouts. That's 6 things.
That's a lot.
Good. When somebody asks me, I think, oh, I'm not doing anything. But I guess I'm
not true.
Okay, good.
You're doing this. This is one thing.
Okay,
telling
good.
Your story is a gift to people. It goes on beyond you.
Yeah, I get to speak in college classes a lot.
Really, that's fun.
Joseph Hawkins at one, and then Marie Cartier at Cal State Northridge. And that's fun to speak to the student organizations. They're studying gender studies.
Do you think that libraries, as we knew them, that we grew up, the library was always important to me as a child because I could take as many books as I wanted.
No limit.
That was a gift.
Yeah.
And I read them. So it was, fun. But people say that's leaving. Do you think that's leaving? That the digital? No, good.
It was said at the time the digital world began that was the end of libraries.
Yeah.
But it's not. The old library, the old book library, and the digital library are meshed together. Going to a library, any library. Well, I'll take the central library here in Long Beach,
Okay.
3 blocks away from me. It's the Billie Jean King Central Library. Books everywhere, but also free computers for computer use.
Right.
A room filled with digital help for accessibility, accessibility problems of any sort.
Right, that's good.
We have that. It's such a combination of both. So no, the old library hasn't gone. It's just the two libraries have meshed together, which I think is great. So
is there a library just filled with books written by women?
I've looked for that. I haven't found it.
Do you think there's a place for it?
I think there's a place for it.
So many women that I've interviewed, I've never written a book, but these women like yourself have written books. I mean, it's great. Yeah.
One of the things Jenny did, she published something called Lesbian Line. Line as in clothespin line.
Right. She's got that clothespin thing.
We used to hang book covers on a clothesline. We'd hang them on a clothesline with clothespins out on our roof.
Were they wood? Did you have wood clothespins or plastic?
Wood clothespins.
I like those.
They would be hanging there on these clothespins, and that was her cover. Lesbian Line. And it was, they have it at one. I think Mazer has some also. It's going to be an exhibition. I'll tell you about that in a minute.
Okay.
And it was not only our catalog, but it was a finding aid to lesbian and women's literature across the USA. So she worked with that. We worked with libraries too. Articles in library publications about gay and lesbian collection development and stuff like that, mixing the two together. Yeah, July 23rd, the One Foundation puts on exhibitions, art. It's located in West Hollywood, right where the Mazer is.
I know it. I know where it's located. I used to work on Robertson Boulevard, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. So July 23rd, they're going to have an exhibition that's going to include Clothespin Fever Press.
Really? Great.
There will be some lesbian lines there. There will be this that I wrote, good old Clothespin Fever Press.
That's great.
Old photographs. Mazer published the newsletter. So they did the newsletter, and one is putting this on. The woman who's doing it is called Sarah Joy Ford. She's from.
Oh, you sent me that information.
Right.
It was great.
Manchester. She's from the United Kingdom, lives in England. And she and Lexi, the curator at One, are putting together this exhibition. It's going to be fantastic, and it's going to include clothespin. I hope you can come.
Yeah, I'll try to.
February.
June, right.
Yeah, it will be up. I don't know how long it's going to be up. July 23rd is the opening, the party, launch party stuff. So anyway, so that will be up there. I'm so excited. I think I've run through a lot of stuff here.
See? All this work ahead of time, we were probably preparing, right?
Do you have questions or anything you want to know?
Do you have questions you'd like to ask me, or?
I'll think of them after we stop the Zoom. That's what.
Right.
I will call you, and I really, really like this stuff.
Well, thank you. We're learning, so we.
That's how we
bring in good help, but people are, happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, honored.
Yeah, that's right. But we're honored. We had no idea what we were going to do. Well, you're adventuresome, so you know what that's like.
Is it something that had you known the problems and difficulties, you might not have done it, like Clothespin Fever Press with us?
No, COVID was so enclosing.
That's right. That's right.
And so I like to be like you, doing something.
That's right. COVID is what got y'all doing this. Yeah.
Right. And we retired. So, we were ready. We've moved to Los Angeles, returned. And I like people and their stories. And that's what this is.
Where did y'all live?
Well, we've always I'm from Chicago, and I moved to Los Angeles. And then Marge was born in Long Beach, actually, Torrance, I think, and then moved to Eastern Oregon, then came to Oregon. She trained in Oregon, and she moved to Los Angeles. So we met in Los Angeles.
Okay.
LA County Hospital years ago. And she's a surgeon. I'm a nurse.
I just thought of another story I'd like to tell you.
Sure. But that's good. That's what this is.
This is from 1970 also.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I think November 1970. The American Psychiatric Association was having an annual convention at the Biltmore Hotel in Los Angeles, this really fancy old 1920s hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And on the program was a psychiatrist, Dr. Philip Feldman, who was going to show a film on how to cure homosexuals with electric shock aversion therapy. So several of us from the Gay Liberation Front, there were only about 30 of us, I think. The majority were gay men, but there were an awful lot of lesbians too. We infiltrated the ballroom where this film was to take place.
I've been there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't sit as a group. We just interspersed ourselves with people there. So Dr. Feldman started to show his film, and his film was showing a young man who was hooked up to all this electric equipment. The young man was shown a photograph of another young man. He was shocked. Mm-hmm. He was shown a photograph of a young woman, no shock, back and forth, back and forth.
Really?
Right. And had it been a lesbian, it would have been in reverse.
Right.
Gotten the shock when shown a photo of a young woman and not shocked when shown a man. Really, right. Electric shock aversion therapy, right? All of a sudden, you're going to be straight. So one of our numbers stood up and said, "Are we going to stand for this shit?" And we all stood up and said, "Hell no."
Right.
So we went up to the stage. And
was he a psychiatrist, Feldman?
Dr. Philip Feldman.
Was he a psychiatrist?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And his specialty was curing homosexuality.
Right.
So we took over the stage, and it was a lot of tension. The people in the audience were yelling at us to stop. We came here to see this, blah, 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 blah. So every time they did, we would all just stamp our feet on the stage and make so much noise. They'd have to stop.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. So we'd stop. They'd start yelling at us. So we'd start stomping again. So a little aversion therapy there. They learned to be quiet. So various ones of us would speak. And there's a photograph of me standing at the podium. There's a photograph of my sister and me.
Right.
I have photographs of all of it. And so basically what we all said, some really—
That should be entered unto itself.
There's a film that was made. It's called Some of Your Best Friends.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's where I captured the photographs.
Yeah, good.
So basically what we told them was, everybody has been listening to you all this time, and now you're going to shut up and listen to us for a change. So we had them sit with us in small groups,
Mhm.
6 psychiatrists and psychologists
Mhm.
with 1 or 2 gay or lesbian. And it was the first time there had been a dialogue between the two.
Mhm.
I even had one psychiatrist say to me, I've never seen a happy homosexual before. Really? Wonder.
Sorry.
So the next year, their convention was somewhere else in a different city. Barbara Giddings and Frank Kameny, 2 early activists, were there. I forgot exactly what they did, but it carried on what we had done. And the dialogue now between the gays and lesbians and the APA had started. A lot of the APA people started to come out.
Mhm.
So by 1972, the APA actually had Barbara Giddings and Frank Kameny do a panel as part of their programs. And they had Dr. Anonymous there. He was a gay psychiatrist who wore a mask and talked about he could not come out in his.
Wow, how powerful.
Yeah, so this all added to the dialogue. So in 1973, the American Psychiatric Association removed homosexuality from its list of mental disorders.
I remember that.
Yeah, do you? Yeah. So it all started with our Biltmore invasion.
Ah, that's great.
Wonderful. I'm so proud.
Yeah, you should be.
And here's the little cherry on top. In 2000, I forgot, 2015 maybe, the city of Los Angeles gives a heritage award, they call it, every year to LGBT who've worked, for us. And I got to be one of the 3 that year, 2015. Yeah.
Great. Huh.
Joseph Hawkins at 1 is who recommended me. So I got to be one of them. So here we are at this city hall with all the council people and a statement from the mayor receiving all these accolades and I still have it, this big proclamation. So I decided that day that I didn't want to drive back to Long Beach. It would have been easy, but I think I'll stay at the Biltmore Hotel tonight.
Why not? Where it started, right?
Yeah. So I packed my big old proclamation and I stayed at the Biltmore Hotel. And I really wish I had a cherry on top to this story, but it's ironic and fun that here I am at the Biltmore. Instead of this outrageous lesbian activist hippie type, I'm this nicely dressed older woman with, paying for my room, sipping gin martinis in the Art Deco bar. And now the APA fully supported LGBTQ. And I had been at the Biltmore protesting all this stuff. It was just making a circle.
A full circle, right. It's a great story.
The irony was delicious. That just was. And that's how I always like to end my description of the Biltmore invasion is 30 years later at that award and being a paying guest at the Biltmore.
I know, how about that? Instead of that hippie with her sash and her bell bottoms, you're all the same person.
Yeah, person. Oh, nicely dressed.
That's right.
Older woman, much older woman.
Still looking good, right?
Hey, yeah, we're doing good, aren't we? You're doing good. Marge's doing good. Oh, and you said she would have had trouble being a doctor at that time.
Oh, Marge,
but
she would have lost her license.
Jesus,
she could not come out, right? And there are several stories in the collection of other women professors who said that they weren't lesbians. I mean, just to protect their job, but she would not have been able to keep her license. Damn. And I do know a woman who went to medical school and was thrown out of that medical school and she eventually got into another one and was successful. But
Brenda was thrown out of the university.
Yeah.
When Brenda was a little girl, she wanted to be a veterinarian. Mm-hmm. We had all the sick and hurt wild animals. She had a little hospital to take care of them. And if one of them died, we would hold a Protestant funeral for them. Little, you know, the turtle, the
I held Catholic funerals for birds.
oh, gee,
Right.
yeah,
Billy Thompson's backyard had a big bush, and by the house, we buried many birds.
okay, that's what this was.
Right.
He wanted to take care of animals, and that was her goal, to be a veterinarian. As she grew older, she still wanted to be, but at that time, women were discouraged from going to veterinary school. Now half the veterinarians are women.
Right.
That's turned to something else instead of veterinarian. I'll tell you a story that has nothing to do with being a lesbian. Can I tell you?
Sure.
Animal, my sister.
Uh-huh.
In Cleveland, Texas, the crows would fly over.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, they would fly over heading south, I guess. They call them a murder of crows. I just like to call them a herd, a herd of crows. Mm-hmm. They would fly over, and one year, one of the crows was injured, and it fell to the ground. Oh. Brenda nursed that crow back to health. And when the crows flew over again, we naturally would call the crow Blackie, you know, which
fits.
Blackie flew off to join the herd of crows. The next year, when the crows flew over, Blackie flew down from the group and sat on my sister's thumb.
Oh,
and
wow.
With her.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, crows are highly intelligent, highly. And for a couple of years after that, Blackie would do that. And then Blackie didn't do it anymore, but that was just amazing. It was like, I know you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
See you again. Right.
And yeah, very much.
Okay. We'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye.